Have you ever felt like a fraud at work? Like you didn't belong in the room? Some 75% of executive women and almost 80% of women in engineering and technology have reported feeling similarly. The name for this phenomenon is imposter syndrome. I've experienced it too, in both my own technical career and then in starting my own business. One night, I was updating my resume to apply to a new engineering job, and when I got done, I remember sitting and looking at that resume, staring in disbelief that I had done all the things on that piece of paper. Every single thing on that resume was true, but it felt like I was looking at the resume of someone else. If you're not sure if you've experienced imposter syndrome, you can ask yourself these 6 questions, which come from Dr. Valerie Young, an expert on the subject of imposter syndrome. Do you chalk up your success to luck, timing, or computer error? Do you believe, if I can do it, anybody can? Do you agonize over the smallest flaws in your work? Are you crushed by even the smallest of constructive criticism, seeing it as evidence of your ineptness? When you succeed, do you secretly feel like you fooled them again? Do you worry that it's only a matter of time before you're found out? Imposter syndrome holds you back because it keeps you from going after the success that you deserve. It keeps you from negotiating your salary, getting promoted, and even speaking up in a meeting. Today, I'm going to share 3 practical things that you can do to silence your inner imposter when you feel like a fraud. Now, before I do, I want to invite you to grab a free copy or excerpt from my book, She Engineers. It's the practical career success guide for women in engineering and tech that works even if you're the only woman in the room. Check out the link below this video. First, what is imposter syndrome? Well, for this, I'm going to read a quote from my book, She Engineers. Imposter syndrome is a feeling that you don't belong and you don't deserve to be here. Many women of notable achievement also have high levels of self-doubt, even when there is substantial evidence to the contrary. What we call imposter syndrome often reflects the reality of an environment that tells marginalized groups that we shouldn't be confident, that our skills aren't enough, that we won't succeed, or that when we do, our accomplishments won't even be attributed to us. Yet, imposter syndrome is treated as a personal problem to be overcome, a distortion in processing, rather than a realistic reflection of our work environment. What happens with imposter syndrome is that it causes us to question our own worth and ability to be successful at work. That, in turn, makes us more likely to show up at work as a victim of our circumstances instead of showing up as a boss woman who is the CEO of her own career path. Now, there are long-term fixes and in-the-moment fixes that can minimize imposter syndrome. In the long term, understanding your purpose at work. So, for example, asking yourself the question, why does your work matter to you? And also building your professional confidence so that you can get routinely comfortable with stepping outside your comfort zone will reduce your incidences of imposter syndrome over time. I wish I could tell you that imposter syndrome just goes away with experience, but the reality is that this isn't always the case. Imposter syndrome will rear its head in situations where you are stretching yourself, no matter what career stage you're in. But regardless of where you are right now, I wanted to share 3 in-the-moment fixes for imposter syndrome that will keep you moving forward even when you feel like a fraud, so that you can show up as a leader even when you don't feel like one. Those 3 things are, first, understand your imposter syndrome triggers. The single most common trigger for imposter syndrome is new situations. Examples of that include doing anything for the first time, a promotion, going out on a construction site or a plant floor when you're usually in the office, a new job, negotiation, dealing with conflict, and public speaking. When you know it's coming, it is easier to prepare. But first you have to pay attention to what triggers imposter syndrome for you. The second way to stop imposter syndrome so that you can show up as the leader you are even when you feel like a fraud is to scenario strategize new situations. Now that you know what triggers you for imposter syndrome, decide what you will do in that moment when it's triggered. Practice taking a deep breath, telling yourself, "That's my imposter talking," and then ask yourself, how can I best serve or show up in this situation? What is the outcome I want in this moment? What that type of internal self-talk does is it focuses your awareness on the moment and kicks your brain out of rumination mode where imposter syndrome can thrive and into problem-solving mode. It's in problem-solving mode where your inner career-rocking boss lives. Once you know what your immediate reaction is going to be, the second part of this is actually role-playing those situations. Do this with a trusted friend or peer, or even by yourself in front of a mirror at home. There is no substitute for practicing how you're going to react in uncomfortable, difficult, and conflict situations, especially if you can do that in a safe environment with immediate peer or mentor feedback. So one example is, let's say you're going to give a presentation. Practice what you'll say out loud. You can also ask someone to watch you practice and give you feedback. As another example, maybe you need to have a difficult conversation, or you're presenting a proposal that you're trying to get acceptance on. Anticipate why someone might not buy into that proposal and practice addressing those concerns out loud. Every time you practice, you build your confidence and you minimize the possibility of you feeling like a fraud or an imposter. We've found that when you only intellectually know it, so you just know it in your head, but you haven't actually practiced articulating it, you're virtually guaranteeing that you will experience low confidence and imposter syndrome in these types of situations. I don't want that for you. So I want to emphasize here that the key to fixing this is role-playing the situation in practice. That brings us to the last strategy. The third thing you can do is increase your energy level. When you walk into a new situation, we have a tendency to shrink in on ourselves and to exude low energy, which is the exact opposite of the executive presence aspiring and current leaders project. You can boost your confidence and minimize imposter syndrome immediately before going into a situation by raising your energy level. For my athletes out there, it's similar to getting pumped up before a big game, race, and workout. So here are a couple ways to practically do this immediately before going into a potential imposter syndrome situation. First, take a 5-minute break and listen to upbeat songs and move around before going into that situation. Movement has been shown to increase energy and confidence. You could take a 5-minute break to meditate. You could write down your intention before going into one of these situations. Ask yourself, how do you want to show up? What outcome do you want from this interaction? Another idea are power poses. Now, power poses don't work for everyone, but they've definitely worked for me in some situations, especially before doing things like giving a big presentation. Try them and see if they work for you. You can Google power poses. Amy Cuddy is the one that made these really mainstream idea. As one example of one, you can put your hands on your hips, or you could put your arms up in the air in kind of the victory stance that you may see runners do after they win a race. One other trick that works really well for raising your energy level, especially in a virtual environment, is to stand up for those calls. Your energy level is naturally higher when you are either standing up or moving around than it will be if you are sitting down. So if you have an important presentation or a meeting where you want to exude confidence and show up as your most authentic and best self in that situation, stand up. So that's it for 3 ways to stop feeling like a fraud at work. To recap, they are: understand your imposter syndrome triggers, scenario strategize new situations including role-playing, and increase your energy level. And remember, it is not your fault that you are experiencing imposter syndrome. There is nothing wrong with you if you feel like a fraud at work occasionally. Instead, it's a result of a work environment that tells you in many subtle and not subtle ways that you don't belong. Now, even though it's not your fault, it's usually up to you to figure out what to do about it. And today, I've empowered you with 3 in-the-moment strategies that you can use whenever that pesky imposter syndrome strikes so that it doesn't keep you from the career success you deserve. Right now, I would love to know in the comments, what situation have you recently experienced imposter syndrome in? And which of our 3 tips are you going to incorporate first? Now, before you go, don't forget to grab your copy of She Engineers in the link right below this video. And if you've enjoyed this video and want to learn more practical tools, tips, and strategies to find your voice, engineer a career on your terms, and make your mark on the world, be sure to subscribe to my channel.